probably rewound that intro. Or you're already thinking about whether you came across the right video or whether you should have kept scrolling. And now you're thinking about the fact that you're thinking about it. And yeah, hi, this one's for you. Most people assume overthinkers just worry too much. A nervous habit like biting your nails, except instead of your nails, you've been chewing on every social interaction you've had since 2009. But that framing completely misses what's actually going on inside the minds of people who seem unable to turn off that thinking button. Once you understand the real mechanism, you'll feel something you haven't felt in a long time. That finally, someone actually gets it. Let's truly go inside. Your brain has a network that researchers call the default mode network, DMN. It fires up the moment you stop focusing on the outside world. Introspection, future imagining, replaying the past, reading social situations. In people who overthink, that network runs loud, constantly, exhaustingly loud. That's the short version. But the more interesting question isn't which brain network is involved, but why it won't stop and what it's actually trying to achieve. Because your brain isn't malfunctioning. It's doing something incredibly sophisticated and subtly wrong. There's a critical difference between constructive reflection, where you're actually moving toward a conclusion, and what the late psychologist Susan Nolan Hoeksema spent decades researching and called rumination. That's when you recite the chorus of sadness, repeating the same thoughts over and over, but never arriving anywhere. You're not problem solving, you're rehearsing the problem. A 2024 study in the journal Molecular Psychiatry showed that rumination is linked to functional changes in the prefrontal cortex, turning fleeting thoughts into toxic loops. Nolan Hoeksema's research found that rumination doesn't just make you feel worse in the moment, it amplifies negative emotion and doubles the risk of depression in adolescent females. Thinking doesn't process the emotion. It preserves it, like amber trapping an insect. And the frustrating irony is, the only reason you keep thinking is that some part of you believes that if you just think long and hard enough, you'll eventually land on the thing that makes it okay. Sadly, you won't. But you'll still try at 2 a.m. when you have to be up at 7. Many of these ruminators grew up in environments where uncertainty was genuinely dangerous. Not movie-style drama, but the everyday sense of not knowing what mood someone would be in, or whether you were reading the room correctly. Your brain learned very early that thinking ahead was how you stayed safe. That was adaptive and smart. The problem is, you're still doing it in the grocery store, in a text message, in a meeting where someone furrows their brow for half a second. A 2024 study on PubMed showed that an overactive DMN prevents the body from distinguishing between a social threat and physical danger. Cortisol still gets released, and it's real. There's a particularly cruel form of overthinking, and I'm guilty of it too, so hear me out. It's when it revolves around other people, specifically how they perceive you. You run endless simulations. What are they thinking? Did I accidentally hurt someone? You draft and redraft messages, not because you can't find the right words, but because you're trying to account for every possible way it can be received.
If anyone watching just thought, oh, that's me, then this is it. That's a form of deep empathy, an empathic ability with a broken off switch. John Keats, the great romantic poet, once wrote in a letter, "Men should bear with each other. The best of men have but a portion of good in them, a kind of spiritual yeast. But overthinkers take that very spiritual yeast and use it to torment themselves. The cruelest part, that hyper-awareness of others means you are the last person to give yourself the same level of compassion. You'll spend 40 minutes convincing a friend they are not a burden, and then lie awake convincing yourself that you are one." As Keats continued, we ought to be passive and accept the faults of others, but the overthinker cannot forgive their own faults. There's a maddening phenomenon that psychologist Daniel Wegner brilliantly demonstrated in what became known as the white bear experiment. Trying not to think about something makes it come back even stronger. The more you suppress, the greater the mental debt. Every time someone tells you don't worry about it, or you tell yourself stop overthinking, you are neurologically setting up that rebound effect. A study in the Journal of Experimental Psychology found that this effect is even stronger in people with high power or high pressure. Even the effort of not thinking fails. Ironic, isn't it? Notice this. Many of you will say you make quick decisions about what to eat tonight with no problem. Everything only stalls when it involves what you value, relationships, career, the people you love. A 2025 study in biological psychology showed that the prefrontal cortex, part of the DMN, can predict the level of intrusion and repetition of negative thoughts. Your anxiety knows what you care about. It's just expressing that love in the worst possible way.
Overthinkers have a complicated relationship with stillness. They enjoy rest like anyone else, but stillness removes the one thing keeping the mind from overload: distraction. The moment you sit down or lie down, the backlog floods in. So you stay busy, because that's the only volume dial you found that kind of works. Andrew Boyd wrote in Daily Afflictions, "Compassion is painful. When you feel connected to everything, you also feel responsible for everything, and you cannot look away. Overthinking is the price you pay for a heart that actually moves in response to the world. But you weren't meant to carry the universe on your shoulders." Understanding why doesn't automatically make it stop, but awareness is the starting point. Stop asking, how do I make this go away? Instead, ask, what is this thought actually trying to protect me from? And does that threat still exist? Most of the time, it dissolved years ago. What's left is just a very well-practiced habit. The goal isn't a quieter mind. That's probably not coming. The goal is a more honest relationship with the thoughts you have. To be able to look at a spiral and say, I see what you're doing. I know why you're doing it. And tonight, you only get 15 minutes of my evening. That's not a small thing. That's most of it, actually.